Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Tuesday show. Today we are reviewing the 1986 Series 4 Black Card of the AWA Remcos, the Grudge Match, which are my favorite releases of the AWA Remco set. So there are 4 releases here in Series 4, and in my opinion, the Grudge Match figures are probably the best set of figures in this entire line. Yes, when we get to the Series 5 Matt Mania figures, there's probably 3 or 4 figures from Series 5 that are probably your top 3, top 4 best figures. I got it. No doubt. But by far, as far as carding, by overall design, characters, Series 4 is it for me. You know, just like I say, Series 3 Hasbro. Is Series 3 Hasbro the most expensive figures in line? No. But, you know, they have some of the most quantity-wise in action figures. They have some of the best characters. They have some of the best quality overall, you know, design of the figures. So I say Series 3 Hasbro has the best release. I say Series 1 LJN has the best release of figures. Are LJN Series 1 the most valuable figures? No, they're probably the least valuable figures from the line. But I still say Series 1 is the best release, with, you know, followed by Series 6. And Series 4 to me, with Remco's, is, in my opinion, the best set of release figures. So I'm actually going to go by the way that these figures are situated on the back of the card. And the first one we're looking at is Carlos Colon versus Abdullah the Butcher. So, Grudge Match, Abdullah the Butcher versus Carlos Colon. And one of the things that I really wasn't even paying attention to, because I'm stupid, Carlos Colon in red singlet. That's crazy because, you know, it's obvious. You know, Carlos Colon in orange singlet is a very common figure. Everyone and their mom has an orange singlet Carlos Colon, right? But the red singlet Carlos Colon is a rarity. And I don't know what it was. Maybe a month or so ago, I'm just happened to be walking down the stairs. Maybe it was just before I started filming these videos, and I just kind of looked at the card, and I'm like, I got a red singlet, Carl. I got to really start paying more attention to my figures, but man. But this is pretty outstanding. And one of the things that I love about, you know, Remco, obviously, the clothing accessories, the soft goods, as they're referred. I gotta get the little elf shoes for my Abdullah Butcher, man. I still do not have the little shoes for my loose figure. And in fact, yeah, I got a custom pair of pants because my Abdullah does not have the black stripe down the leg. So that is a definite custom figure. But look at these graphics. This is what I'm talking about. Awesome. If you are a collector and you are looking to get your MOC AWA Remco figures, be prepared to pay up. These cards normally sell for, if they're in decent condition, they don't have to be the most pristine in the world, but probably look at about $350 to $400 at least, I would say. And why does it look dark on my screen? I don't like that. Yeah, so we'll start with Abdullah the Butcher. And one of the things I always like is that they even add the scars on his forehead. So Abdullah the Butcher, very synonymous before going into the matches, taking these razor blades and kind of cutting deep into his forehead, right? Man was an absolute sociopath. He was also very famous for like hiding weapons inside his pants. So in the heat of the battle, during the match, he'd dig into his pants and pull out like a fork, get someone into like a headlock and start jabbing them with that fork and everything. So, Abdullah Butcher, what was he called? Something of Sudan. I forgot, but something of Sudan was one of his ring names. But obviously, Abdullah Butcher is the most common ring name that he goes by, the most infamous ring name. That's not his real name, obviously. Something Shreves is his real name, and he's still alive today. I think he's in his 80s, so he's still kicking, which is, man of his size. I mean, he's got to be pushing a good 450 pounds. I mean, I don't know if he still has that weight on him, but I mean, as an older guy, he has to have lost some weight, right? But I mean, you see him, younger. He's a big King Kong Bundy type guy. Wow. But this man has had some notorious battles over his illustrious career. Born in Canada, as part of Stampede Wrestling, had a ton of titles over the course of his career. A lot of acronyms that I am not going to memorize. A million acronyms. I'm not going to memorize them all, so I'm just going to say a bunch of NWA titles, and I'm going to leave it at that. But, he fought in Puerto Rico, he's fought in WCW, he's fought in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's won titles there, obviously. And, his most famous battles, obviously, against Bruiser Brody. That's probably like his most infamous feud. He's had his infamous battles with Carlos Colon. And we're going to talk about Carlos Colon shortly. But Abdullah Butcher. A lot of us, we keep saying that Abdullah Butcher is also very famous because he was inducted into the WWF or WWE Hall of Fame for not actually ever wrestling in WWF/WWE. But that's not entirely correct, because what was it, 1970s something? In the 70s, he did have a few matches with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So, I mean, technically he did. I mean, was it a long ongoing process? No, it was a few matches. But it was WWF, right? So, and Triple WF and WWF is one and the same, right? So he did technically wrestle for WWE at some point. But Abdullah Butcher, I mean, this has got to be one of my all-time favorite figures ever. And I picked this guy up a lot when I was starting to collect Remcos. I love the figure, so I don't know, I just needed him. And I always thought he was super valuable, so I wanted him for that. But, and of course, when viewers, like, hey, do you have him? I'm like, yeah. You sell him to me? Yeah. What do you want for him? Well, I paid this much for him, so, pay me what I sold him, what I bought him for. It's yours. A lot of time, it's just nice to have when people reach out to me. I have something I can, I can get to them, send it out to them. So, but Abdullah Butcher, and of course Carlos Colon, as I said, he does come with two variants, both red singlet and orange singlet. Now, orange singlet, most common. Carlos Colon, basically Abdullah Butcher or Carlos Colon without accessory. Either one of them are probably $40 to $50 figures without accessory. You throw the pants on Abdullah Butcher, he might climb up to $50 to $75 potentially. You throw the boots on him, he probably jumps to about 100, 125 probably. Yeah, a complete Abdullah the Butcher is probably worth a whole lot of money. Carlos Colon's probably a $40 figure with accessory, probably still $50 to $60. Red singlet, especially if the red singlet's original, you're probably looking closer $75 to $100. Very rare to find an original, so, and just an awesome piece. So I keep thinking that Carlos Colon, I keep thinking I saw him in the 1992 Rumble, but I actually had to look it up to verify, and it wasn't the 92 Rumble, it was 1993 that I saw Carlos Colon. Because when I started collecting Remcos, right, before I even had a chance to ever look this guy up a few years back, I knew exactly who that was. I knew Carlos Colon. I didn't grow up watching Carlos Colon, but I knew who this was. Because as a kid, I remember watching this guy run down the aisle in an orange singlet like so, and coming into the Royal Rumble. I just remember him from that Rumble, and that was it. That was my only exposure to Carlos Colon as a kid. And getting the Remco figure, I knew who he was just from that. So that was pretty awesome. But one of my favorite Remco figures. Another awesome, amazing piece. One of the top 10 greatest Remcos. And he would be a top 5 if it wasn't for the Matt Mania Series 5 figures. So he is obviously an absolute legend in his hometown of Puerto Rico. So he is also a founder of, I forget what it's called, WWC, I think it is. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a wrestling organization created in Puerto Rico. So he is one of the founders, owners of the Wrestling Federation in Puerto Rico, but I don't think he's ever wrestled in WWF again. I know he's never appeared in any Royal Rumbles or anything since then. But it was a nice little caveat to have him in WWF for that one event. You know, having this AWA legend, you know, appear. But, you know, here's another guy. Puerto Rico, wrestled Canada, you know, different territories, you know, Japan. You know, because everybody's got to go to Japan to wrestle, because that's, you know, why not? All right, what's up next on the card? All right. Next up on the card is Big Scott Hall versus Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. What I like about this card is both of these items are signed. So, both carded. And I'm looking at this Jimmy Garvin. I thought this one was a flabby belly Jimmy Garvin, but I think this one might actually be, I think he might actually be Chiseled Abs Jimmy Garvin. That's alright. We know that there's variants of Jimmy Garvin, right? Big Scott Hall. So we got Scott Hall. So, obviously, I grew up mostly in the 90s. Only got a chance to live half the 80s. And really, your memories don't really still start kicking in until you're about 5 years old. By the time I was 5, it was already 1990. So, you know, as far as the 80s are concerned, 88, 89, when you're 3, 4 years old, you don't really have the most extravagant memories. So, you know, a few pieces here and there. you can vaguely remember, but so when I think Scott Hall, I think Razor Ramon in the 90s, of course. So I think most of us at some point grew up watching Scott Hall wrestle in some capacity, whether it's WWF or WCW. But Big Scott Hall, right? But he also went by the moniker Magnum Scott Hall. Why? Well, for starters, look at that face. I mean, I think that is abundantly clear. In the 80s, with Tom Selleck, Magnum PI, was big. I mean, I look at this figure. That's exactly what my go-to is. I think I'm looking at Magnum PI. I think I'm looking at Tom Selleck. He's got the Selleck stash. So I think it's perfect that they kind of gave him this Magnum Scott Hall moniker. And like the card says, later on they would move it on to Big Scott Hall. And you know what? He would actually go on to tag team with good friend, and later on, he would actually make the statement that Kurt Hennig was a good inspiration on part of his on his wrestling career. So he would tag team with Kurt Hennig, and he would actually win the AWA tag team titles. And I'm trying to think, who did they win the titles from? I'm trying to think. I'm wondering if it was the High Flyers. Was it the High Flyers? I'm trying to think. I want to say yes. I want to say High Flyers, but I could be wrong. But Scott Hall, he's not exactly your most fluently available figure, but he does come up from time to time. If you look at this figure on eBay, Mercari, varying prices, it could go anywhere between $50 to $150. So, do I think it's worth $75, $100? Not really. I just got a second chance offer on one today, as a matter of fact. Today as in the filming of this video, and I purchased the second one, so I might resell that one. I know I've had a couple folks reach out to me like, hey, you have additional figures, and you know what? If they reach out to me through the channel, like, hey, you got any? I might just sell it just for what I paid into it. I don't have to make a profit on it, just so that my folks have something for their personal collection. Jimmy Garvin, because we talked about him in Series 3, I'm not going to say a whole lot about him in this video. So in Series 3, I brought this exact same figure out because we looked at his chiseled abs and his flabby variants, both carded figures in Series 3, right? And I had the chiseled abs in Series 3, and I just pulled this one off the Series 4 shelf for the loose figures. So I decided to just bring this out again. This figure inside here is chiseled abs, but that's fine. Like I said, he's got two variants, and I keep this with the grudge match figure. That's fine. All right. Next up, we've got Nick Bockwinkel versus Larry Zbyszko. And stupid me, man. I'm so freaking blind. Like, I don't even think about it. Oh, God. One of my viewers keeps asking me, or he's asked me a couple times, if I've got the white jacket Larry Zbyszko, and I'm so stupid. I don't even think about it, and I've said no. Wretched, I'm sorry, buddy. Um, like I was thinking a red and white jacket, like a dual color jacket. I wasn't thinking series two, series two red jacket Larry Zbyszko, and series four white jacket Larry Zbyszko. So like I wasn't familiar with a dual red and white. So stupid, right? And again, I was coming down the stairs and I just looked at this card and I'm like, Larry Zbyszko, white jacket. I'm like, duh. uh, I really felt embarrassed. But yeah, Larry Zbyszko gets his second release in the series. And of course, Nick Bockwinkel, who is just absolute legend in the AWA, basically everywhere, right? But we'll start with Larry Zbyszko. And Larry Zbyszko, of course, son-in-law of owner, wrestler, legend, promoter, Olympian, Vern Gagne. Brother-in-law to Greg Gagne, of course. No, and Larry Zbyszko, he's won multiple titles in AWA. And he would later on go on to be like ring announcer or commentator in WCW and what have you. And I still can't get over, like, I talked about in series 2, like, this man was like 5'10", 5'9", something like that. Still taller than I am, but damn. It's so odd to see wrestlers under 6 feet tall. And I still say that he's got like one of the better head sculpts. One of the more realistic looking head sculpts, I would say. So, in Series 2, he had an all red jacket. In Series 4, he has the all white jacket. Almost like Rick Martel. Actually, this might be the exact same jacket as Rick Martel. It's very possible. You know what? I think this is Rick Martel's jacket. Yeah. This is either Rick Martel's jacket or this is Nick Bockwinkel's jacket. Yeah, because when you look at Larry Zbyszko, he's got collars. He's got collars on his jacket. When you look at when you look at Nick Bockwinkel, no collars, right? So, no collars. Now the texture of the shirt looks identical to this. So, this could be a Nick Bockwinkel shirt. Whatever. That's fine. I mean, am I going to go out and get a new shirt for Larry Zbyszko? Probably not. I mean, that's why I collect MOCs. Is for reasons just like this. But I have OCD. But so you never know. And actually, I just I had a second chance offer I talked about earlier, and I picked up that Razor Ramon figure, Scott Hall. I also picked up a couple of Legion of Doom figures as well, complete with pants and chains. So I picked up those two, and I picked up Rick Martel with jacket. Now the only reason I bought that one is because it came with an original AWA belt, and that AWA belt I've seen on eBay sells by itself for like $25, and I'm like, forget this. I want that belt. I'm hoping I can probably resell the figure for the same amount, $20 or something, and I think I bought it for 25. So I mean, I'm hoping I can sell the figure for 20, and get some of the money back. And the belt, like I said, the belt, I don't know who I'm going to put it on. Probably Legion of Doom. One of the figures that come with championship belts, right? Nick Bockwinkel. So Bockwinkel actually lived a very long life. I mean, he lived to be, 80 years old? I think I looked it up just before I did this video. He actually died in 2015. So same thing with a lot of these guys. Massive amount of championships. AWA, NWA. They all go to Japan because everybody goes to Japan, Canada, etc. I don't know all these acronyms. I'm not going to try to give you a bunch of acronyms I don't know. So, but a bunch of NWA acronyms, right? So, this guy started super freaking young, though. And we're talking, 20 years old, I think. So, 1950s. This guy was active in, 1954. How you start? Imagine wrestling for, 4 decades. We're talking, bushwhackers. That's bushwhacker level. Technically, you could throw Ric Flair up there because, even Ric Flair was wrestling into his 70s. So, damn, Ric Flair could... if you're having Ric Flair wrestle in his 70s, that's another 5 decades right there. But, if he was retired for X amount of years, do you count those retired years? You might. But Bockwinkel. What do I know about Rick Bockwinkel? Honestly, not a whole lot. I think he was intended. Guys like Nick Bockwinkel and Larry Zbyszko, looking at this list here, yeah, that's pretty much it. Younger guys like Rick Martel and Kurt Hennig later on, but basically the older guys. Your Bockwinkel and your Larry Zbyszko, they were really supposed to carry the AWA. When basically Hulk Hogan, jumped ship from AWA to WWF because they didn't think that the fans would take to Hulk Hogan. They thought guys like this were going to be your mega superstars. Hulk Hogan goes to WWF. Hulkamania goes rampant. And WWF just absolutely explodes. And they were relying on Nick Bockwinkel to draw in crowds. Well, damn work for them. Now did it. All right. Last package is going to feature Stan Hansen versus Jerry Crusher Blackwell. Now, these are two of the absolute coolest darn figures in line. Like I said, man, every one of these figures, maybe Bockwinkel and Zbyszko. Out of all of these, I'd say those are probably the only... Maybe Garvin and Scott Hall. So, alright, so Abdullah the Butcher versus Cologne and Hansen versus Blackwell. These 4 figures at least. I would say these 4 figures could definitely be on the top 10 best Remcos. I think the High Flyers deserve to be on the top 10. So that gives you 6 great figures. Ric Flair deserves to be on there, 7. And then the ones that are definitely at the top, like the Barbarian, the Sheik Adnan, the Russian, that's 10. But the Rockers deserve to be up there, right? With their accessory. Doug Summers is a nice one, but he's probably number 13 or so. Buddy Rose deserves to be in the top 5. So, that's why it's so hard. There's so many great Remco figures. But, let's start with Stan Hansen. Oh, man. That's what I need. That hat. Stan Hansen is an interesting character. And of course, he freaking reminds me from... why do I always forget that dude's name? He is the actor from the movie Mask, alongside Cher. And he is now, a voice actor on Family Guy. And he plays the new mayor. I could never remember his darn name. Famous freaking actor in a million different things. I know his face. I know his face. I know his voice. And I can't freaking remember his... Something Elliott. There you go. Elliott. Something Elliott. Anyways. Not important. But that's who this looks like. That's who it reminds me of. Stan Hansen. Dang. This guy... in the 1970s, he started with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, right? And he was feuding with Bruno Sammartino. He put that mug out of commission. And, he botched like a power slam or something and broke that mug's neck. And, damn. Bruno had to go into part-time retirement after that. He was a big freaking guy though. This guy feuded with some of the biggest mega superstars that the WWF had to offer. I mean, we're talking, living legend Bruno Sammartino, right? And then you go on, you're talking Andre the Giant. You're talking Bob Backlund. You're talking some mega freaking hitters, some heavy hitters. And then he goes to New Japan Pro Wrestling because, what do I say? Every mug out there has to go to Japan and wrestle. And what's he doing? He's right back at it. Andre the Giant. And I think he actually freaking body slammed Andre the Giant out there too. But I think he wrestled Inoki out there as well. So he faces Inoki, faces Andre the Giant. He battled Bob Backlund again. I think he did battle with Hulk Hogan. I think he had some really killer matches with Hogan. I've caught a match or two of that. So that was freaking awesome. Stan Hansen. And of course, a very popular WCW wrestler. I think late 80s, early 90s, or both. But yeah, he's bounced around. AWA, NWA, WWF. So. And again, among the AWA Remco figures, one of the absolute most pristine pieces. I just want the darn hat for my loose figure because at least this part is complete, right? But, and the last piece, which is Jerry Crusher Blackwell. Jerry Crusher Blackwell. So, I know at some point in his career, there was another, probably multiple people, but I know there was another Crusher in AWA. And I don't know if he dropped his moniker Crusher because that guy was also called Crusher. Shoot, for the life of me, I don't remember his name, but I know there was another guy named Crusher in AWA as well, especially in the early mid 80s, like 83, 84 or something. So, but he, at some point, he did actually join forces with the Sheikh Adnan as his manager, and so he started wearing like these turbans and whatnot, right? And he joined forces with Ken Patera, and they became the Sheiks. That was fun. Now they definitely, I believe. Now they definitely, I believe. Well, what is it? Did they definitely, or do you think so? Stupid. No, they definitely defeated the High Flyers for the tag team titles, and I don't remember if the High Flyers regained the titles back from them or if they dropped the titles to somebody else. But Ken Patera and Crusher Blackwell, or Jerry Blackwell, they did defeat them for the Sheiks. Defeated them for it. But again, another great figure. Awesome look. Love the accessory. And it's another, flabby belly figure. So, I mean, I think the flabby belly figures are some of the better ones. So, speaking of managers, just kind of talking about the Sheik as, Sheik Adnan as his manager. I was just kind of glancing over at freaking, damn, forgot his damn name, Bockwinkel, Jesus Christ. Around 1984, oh man, Bobby Heenan, left for WWF, right? And that just got me thinking that you have all of these guys, like, it seems like people like Jimmy Hart, for example, has managed every wrestler that's ever existed. And you got like even freaking Bobby Heenan, man. It just seems like some of these people just their list of managees, I'm just creating my own words, is just so freaking excessive. Like, my God, is there anyone on this planet that you guys haven't managed? And that's insane. Look how squishy his head is. Like, there's some Ric Flair figures that are kind of like that, right? Where they have squishy heads, and other figures where their head is like super hard, right? So that's why some of these carded figures, you gotta be very specific, very meticulous about which ones you buy, because those are variants. Not all Remcos are like this. Trying to see if find a like this one, hard head, right? So, but yeah, this was a good series. This was a nice one, a fun one to talk about. Next week we are going to take a look at the AWA Remco Matt Mania Series 5, and that's going to be the last of the figures. I'm also going to include the referees, 3 referees. So technically, Dick Worley is like the only actual Matt Mania referee, but Ned and Curly Brown, I think, is the other one. I am gonna include them as well. I think Ned might actually be part of like one of the wrestling rings, but I'm gonna show all 3 of the referees. So I think that's 9 figures. 3, 5, 7. No, that's 10 figures we'll be looking at. So Matt Mania, I so far only have the Doug Summers carded. I'm not going to buy any more cards. And I'll just show the one carded I have. The 10 loose figures. Then a couple weeks. Last week I also got a red ring, red steel cage ring. So, and today I got a custom ropes, blue ropes, because the ones that I had were, they were weak. They were loose. They were expanded too far, right? So I got some custom ropes, so they're nice and super tight, which is fantastic. Put it together. Got the little prongs, beautiful. So I will have the red ring, the two brown cloth rings, both cardboard and hardwood. So that's go. I'll have those 3 rings. I'll have all 3 copies, carded thumb wrestlers. It's not Remco, or it's not AWA, but it is Remco, the WWF hockey table. Nah, it's not AWA, so that doesn't count. But yeah, just 2 more weeks, guys. 2 more weeks of Remco's, and then we are going to jump into the last 3 weeks of Tuesday shows, which is going to be the WCW Galoobs. If you guys do want me to continue, I can move on to the WCW Original San Francisco Toymaker line. That would be about 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. But if you guys aren't interested, let me know. As of right now, I plan on stopping with the Galoobs. But guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you all in the comments and see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.